how we doing on this Wednesday? Welcome to it. Flamesnation Live is underway. It's Pat Steinberg along with you as we come at you live from our Sportsnet 960 downtown studios. Just finished up doing the big show, and now we're talking some Flames. Who we got in? We've got Noah and JF and Josh all in with us on this Wednesday night, and we have got a lot to talk about. You know, it has been a bad stretch for the Calgary Flames. I am well aware of that. Losses in 9 of 11 and 8 of 9. They have played themselves completely out of playoff contention. So I am fascinated to see and fascinated to hear what you want to see from this team between now and the end of the season. Daryl Sutter's the head coach. We know he's not going anywhere. The trade deadline is Monday. How do you want to see the Flames approach the deadline? And what do you want to see in terms of who's playing with who? Because there are a few things that we can jump into in this regard. Let's, first of all, as you start to filter in, let's say hello to our sponsors. Deuce Vodka is with us and on board once again. Deuce Vodka is the official sponsor of Flamesnation Live. We wish that it was the celebratory vodka this year. Instead, it's the make you feel better, drown your sorrows if you're into that type of thing vodka. Check out Deuce Vodka wherever you buy your liquor in this province. And if your local liquor store does not carry Deuce Vodka, well, tell them to come to their senses because they need Deuce Vodka. It just is as simple as that. So first of all, Zach asks, breaking trade, did you see it? And yes, I did see it. The New York Islanders in the last couple of minutes have traded Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac from New Jersey. So Lou Lamoriello going to work on his former team brings in Palmieri and Zajac for a couple prospects, a first and a fourth round pick. That is a big time move. I don't know what it means to Zach's point when it comes to the market for Sean Monahan. I don't know how realistic it is for the Flames to be moving Monahan between now and the trade deadline. I really don't. I think that a guy like Monahan, and Brad Treliving even admitted this when he was on with us, on with our morning show a little earlier this week. He even admitted that, you know, those type of deals probably are going to happen come the off season. So, you know, I don't know if Monahan at the deadline is realistic. Look, Zach, if that happened and they're able to find a good return like that, well, then by all means, without question, you go and make that happen. I'm not as confident that you're going to be able to, because unlike Palmieri, Monahan's not having a great season. Unlike Palmieri, Monahan doesn't have a lot of playoff success. And unlike Palmieri, we're not talking about an expiring contract. So, but the fact that the New York Islanders were able to bring in a cap hit like that, rather to give up that type of asset to bring in a guy like Palmieri, and the fact that the Devils were able to exploit that and bring in a first round pick, like, that's impressive. I'll say that much. And it does give you a little bit more hope about what the Flames could do when they go towards trying to sell off some assets between now and the trade deadline. That is a big time deal. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. JF says Flames are sellers for sure next Monday. You'd hope that's the way they're going. I wrote an article on this at flamesnation.ca today, and basically I put Calgary's potential trade assets or trade targets into 4 tiers. And I have in my top tier who I believe are the 2 most marketable pending unrestricted free agents, Derek Ryan and David Riddick. I have the next group of pending UFAs in another tier, Michael Stone, Josh Levo, Joachim Nordstrom, those type of players who are right now, you know, on NHL minimum deals, except for Levo, who's at $875 right now. I've got Sam Bennett in his own tier because he's a pending restricted free agent. And then I've got guys like, Monahan or Gaudreau or those type of guys. I've got them in they're in their own tier and just maybe a little less likely to move between now and the deadline. What do we got from Noah? It says, meant to ask this in overtime, but which stretch was worse for the Flames, this current one or the miserable slog March in 2013? I think this one, Noah, for a couple of different reasons. Number one being that, this one is in the middle of a pandemic, so that makes it even worse. When you're in the middle of a pandemic and everything just is no good, it all sucks. I think that would be the number. This would be one of the worst stretches I can ever remember when it comes to the Calgary Flames. So I would say this one, but that one in 2013 was definitely no fun. Definitely was hard to work through. But at least that year the expectations weren't high. That year the expectations were low. So yeah, I don't feel like that is as much of a it's a comparable, but I don't think it's quite the same way, that's for sure. More from Zach, who says, when it comes to the Palmieri and Zajac trade, says, I was meaning that Zajac Palmieri got a decent return, and Monahan's a younger, more talented player. If you look at the entire body of work, I agree Monahan's been regressing this year and no real playoff impact. And that could very well be true. I don't know if we see that happening between now and the deadline. That's more what I'm skeptical about at this point. Ryan says, I strongly believe a fire sale should be had. Still believe that, like we spoke about last week. He also wants to see some Heat players coming up, and that's another benefit that I think is important when it comes to the Calgary deadline approach, because if the Flames trade off some of these unrestricted free agents, say they move a couple guys between now and the end of the regular season. Say that we're talking about them, or the trade deadline rather. Say that we're talking about them moving, say, they move Riddick, they move Ryan, they move Bennett, and they move Nordstrom. Say they're able to move those four guys. Who knows if they're able to, but say they do. Well, that opens up 3-4 roster spots for Zagadulin and net to get a couple of starts. And maybe Matthew Phillips, maybe Connor Mackey. You know what I'm saying? It just opens up a few more options to give players from the American League that opportunity. So I do think that is something that also needs to be taken into account, that, by making some of those deals, you might also be able to serve that second master, which is opening up some spots for younger players on the rosters. So it's something to watch for. It definitely is something to watch for, and something that I'd like them to do myself. Derek says they need to rebuild. Lots of potential. Johnny Hockey's in the minors. I don't know if there's anybody in the system right now that is going to be quite what Gaudreau was, but I do think, it's my opinion that they do need to go in a pretty drastically different direction, but I don't know if they're going to. We shall see. Elias, I hope Bennett finally gets traded. Well, if there's going to be a time, now is the time to trade Sam Bennett. I truly believe that, because Bennett is on an expiring contract, regardless of the fact that he is going to be a restricted free agent as opposed to an unrestricted free agent. But he's an expiring contract, so there's that. You've got an expansion draft upcoming, and that expansion draft would suggest that you're not going to be able to keep a guy like Bennett, or at the very least protect him. And this is the year where I think you can still leverage what he did in the bubble. He had a great bubble playoffs, and you can leverage that. I think the Flames should absolutely be trying to move Sam Bennett. I don't know if the market will be there, but I think the intent has to be going to aggressively shop Sam Bennett among some of the other guys. I do think if they can trade Bennett, they should. If they can get a pick or something for him and have to eat a little bit of salary, it's my belief that they should anyway. What else we got here? This from Justin. Says, so Sutter's come in promising all these different changes and hasn't done any of it. Do you believe that's just because of when he came in? And do you think we'll see any of those changes next season? I do believe coming in mid-season plays a part in it. I also believe part of this season has been about evaluating and seeing who can and cannot thrive with this head coach. And yes, I believe those changes are more likely for next season, more likely for a full-on regular season starting in October. I grant you that it's not a great look as an organization to come in and have a coaching change and then to go on the run that they've got. They've won 5 times in 16 games under their new head coach. That's not what you're hoping for when you make the coaching change. But also, I understand that it's more than about this season. That's also important. So, that is very much how I would phrase that. What else we got on our live chat today? Josh says, I write off this season. They're playing in the strongest division. If they make any moves, it should only be to protect themselves from losing them in the Kraken draft. Josh, I'll have to respectfully disagree. I don't think the North Division is the strongest division. I would suggest that it's not all that. I think the East or the West are just as strong, if not stronger. And I don't know, do I think that part of this is because they're playing in this type of weird schedule? Sure, but why is Winnipeg, why is Edmonton being able to deal with it better than Calgary? I think it's a very convenient excuse, and I'm not trying to come at you, Josh. I'm really not, but I think it's a real convenient excuse to just say, it's just the season. It's just the. It's just who they're playing, and they've been playing in a different direction. They're Stanley Cup contenders. This team has failed to perform in the postseason. They failed in 2019. They failed in the bubble in 2020. This year's been an abject failure in the regular season. What more evidence do you need to suggest that this is not a Stanley Cup contender? And they're not just 1 or 2 moves away from being a Stanley Cup contender. So that's how I would respectfully disagree with you, Josh, that I don't think that you can just chalk it up to, it's just a bad season and it's because of the division. I really don't. This from Zach. What did you think of Sutter's comments post-game? Don't quote me, but he said this team has a lot of preparation for a full 82-game season. Thoughts? Is he finally seeing the inconsistency with this group and this core? I don't think he's finally seeing it. I think that he has seen it right from the get-go, and absolutely something that he's going to have to address, and we'll see what type of roster moves we see the Flames make to address it. But, yeah, I think he absolutely has seen those things, no doubt about it. And I think that's why he is, driving home some messages, because I think he's driving home messages to management and driving home messages to ownership and all that type of stuff. I really do. I don't think that it's just a new thing that's dawned on the head coach about the inconsistency in the core. I think he was aware of it coming in. I think he is now seeing some different things that he's been here and has been coaching. This one from Gary, who says, Sutter, GM next year and a new coach. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we're talking about Darryl being the next general manager of this team. Do I think it's out of the question? No, of course I don't. We saw what happened in 2003. So I don't think you can write it completely off. I don't think that you can write off them making another move at general manager, whether it be Dean Lombardi coming in or promoting Craig Conroy or something like that. I don't think any of that is out of the question. And I also don't think it's out of the question that Treliving is back next year. All of those things I think are possibilities. But no, I can't sit here and say there's no way that Darryl Sutter will be the general manager next year, because I see I know that he has been the GM of this team before, has been a GM before. So, and that's the way it went the last time he was brought in mid-season as a coach. So no, I don't know one way or the other what's going to happen, but can I sit here and tell you that no, there's no chance? Well, no, I certainly I certainly can't say that. What else we got? Jason says Monahan should have been traded after saying he didn't feel pressure to score during last year's playoffs. We were talking about moves coming out of last year, but I also believe the Flames tried. They did try to move Monahan, or at the very least, they discussed moving Monahan in the offseason. I believe that he was, at the very least, in conversation to potentially move to Columbus because we know that the Flames were interested in Josh Anderson. Obviously, it didn't come to fruition. Anderson's playing in Montreal now, but I do think that they explored some of those moves those offseason. They didn't make them happen, obviously. But I also believe that the market wasn't super hot for Monahan either, and I don't think it's going to get any hotter this offseason. How's that? I don't think that we're going to be talking about a massively different market or a massively more interested market for Monahan this offseason. Zach on this says, on a positive note, looks like 13 and 23 are split up. Love the look of Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk. We've seen that line before, albeit for very short periods of time. I believe we saw it for 2 games last season. I believe we saw it for the Heritage Classic in Regina, and then we also saw it the next game in Carolina. But we've seen it for very, very small periods of time. So I think that it's interesting. I mean, they're not going to the playoffs. If you're going to make some changes, I guess that you can see why now you'd make the changes. So we'll see how it works out. The way they had lines today, we'll see if this is the way that they go moving forward. But they had Monahan with Mangiapane and Dubé, and they had Gaudreau on the left side of Lindholm at center and Tkachuk on the right. We'll see if they continue with that. Jay Affett asked a little earlier about who the Flames are going to draft. Well, right now by points percentage, I think the Flames would be drafting 5th overall. You can get a good player at 5. I don't think you're getting Owen Power. I don't know if you're getting Matthew Beniers, but maybe you're able to get a Kent Johnson. Maybe you're able to get a Dylan Guenther. I mean, you can get a good player with where they're drafting right now. I think on points percentage, before lottery is weighed in, you're looking at them drafting number 5. Whether or not that's where they would end up drafting or not, I don't know. But, yeah. Joseph says, I hope the Flames surprise everyone and go on a heater and go 14-0-2 or 14-2. I mean, yeah, that'd be awesome. Does anybody really see it happening? They're 8 points out. The other team has 5 games in hand. Calgary's tragic number or elimination number is at 12.5. Even if the Flames win 16 for 16, all Montreal would need to do is win 12 games and lose another in overtime. Like, we're talking about less than 1% of Calgary's chances to make the playoffs. No disrespect to you, Joseph. It would be quite the story. I just don't really see it happening. But, hey, maybe these line changes spark it, and they do, and that'd be pretty cool. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I just don't see it happening. And final question today from Jason. Is Riddick being traded before the deadline? I think they'll try. I think that they will pursue it. Whether or not it happens, we'll see. I don't know how many. There's only really 2 or 3 teams that would be looking for goaltending help. And would they look to Carolina with their goaltending situation? Would they look elsewhere for that? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's out of the question. I think they'll try, and I think there would be interest. Whether or not it's enough, we shall wait and see. And Sam did also ask, do the Canucks and Flames get rescheduled? That remains up in the air because Flames have now lost 3 games against Vancouver. So they will lose the 2 games this week and the game that was postponed last week. So will they get rescheduled? The NHL will try. Will they ultimately be able to or need to? I don't know. And let's not forget that, they may not even need to make them up because neither Calgary nor Vancouver are going to the playoffs. The 4 playoff teams are set, let's be honest. So they may not need to make them up, and they may decide not to. We'll see. We'll see. That remains up in the air as Vancouver's situation continues to progress and hopefully progress nothing but positively going forward. Stay tuned. We'll do another one of these on Friday. Pike will be with me on Friday, so we'll do another Flames Nation Live in a couple of days. Thank you for stopping by today. A reminder that we are brought to you every single time by our friends at Deuce Vodka. Check them out at your local liquor store. If Deuce Vodka is not at your local liquor store, make sure you get them to bring it in. Your celebration vodka, Deuce Vodka, brings you Flames Nation Live each and every time. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. We'll talk to you later this week. Be kind to one another. It's been another edition of Flames Nation Live. Thanks for joining us.